Real quick, major spoilers for Natlan up to Act 4. So if you haven't done the quest yet, get out and come back once you finish. It's absolutely worth it. Writing a true tragedy is a hard thing to do, especially with something like war. Handling it with the gravity necessary is already a delicate balance, not to mention making sure your reader or player can feel the weight of it. In Genshin, there are two war stories, Natlan and Inazuma. Now, it's no secret that I hate Inazuma. It objectively has many flaws, regardless of your opinion on it. Most of my audience found me through my video on Inazuma, so we can bond in that. But anyway, when it comes to Inazuma, the war was rather lackluster, with only one small-scale battle. Not to mention every time we speak with the soldiers, they're upbeat, despite supposed low morale. Due to this, the war loses the gravity and impact it could have. Meanwhile, in the most recent act of Natlan's story, the war feels real. There's loss and gravity, real impact, and we can see a full-scale tragedy playing out before our very eyes. Honestly, this is probably the most fun I've had in Genshin's story thus far. So, how did Inazuma's war flop so terribly and Natlan's come across so viscerally? Let's look into it. Before I examine it more closely, as always, a quick reminder to like and sub. I make a ton of videos like this one every week analyzing Genshin's story. If you want to converse with other lore enjoyers and myself, join the Discord. We have an amazing community there with a bunch of fun stuff going on, as well as the occasional giveaways. Also, just to make sure, I know we have a lot of real-life war conflicts going on right now, and I'll ask you to do me a favor and not bring those up in the comments. We're talking about a silly game, but those conflicts have real impacts and can hurt real people involved. I don't want anyone hurt, so please leave such comments to yourself. Alright, enough of that. Let's get into the video. So, why did Inazuma fail where Natlan succeeded? First, we need to talk about weight. War is obviously a heavy subject, no one is denying that. It affects millions of people as well as the nation as a whole. So if wars in your stories are treated differently than those of real life, it'll lack the natural weight of a war. In Inazuma, we get told by Kokomi and many others about how terrible the war is. The low morale of soldiers is excessively highlighted by her and Goro. So what of that low morale do we see? Virtually none. A good example to show the effect of the war is when Teppei is touring us around the camp. We're on the ground with the soldiers and can see the dark truth of the war. Perfect. Except that doesn't happen. Most of the soldiers are relatively optimistic and lighthearted. There's a one-off line about an injury, but it's quickly resolved. If we're to believe that this has been as devastating as it is on the soldiers, why don't we see it? Meanwhile, Natlan. The weight of Natlan's losses is clear. All through the quest, we see the death toll increase. And even more than just the map, we see the bodies of the Natlanese scattered everywhere, coupled with a stellar performance from Paimon's English VA.
Hey! Wake up! Hakil! Wake up!
They're all dead.
Oh no! Are we too late?
And we can see the impact in-game. On-screen, I'm playing side-by-side footage of before and after the Natlan quest, then get on-game for the source. These tangible details give real physical impact to the story. Also, I'm not sure if everyone encountered this part, but my favorite bit was when we went to save the people traveling with the Saurians. When I just saw them lying on the ground, my heart broke. And after when the traveler says, "This is no tragedy, this is war," literal chills. Especially Koichi's death at the end. While I think her death can come off a little plot devicey, I think it was largely well done. We spent a good portion of earlier acts learning about her and her relationship with Chaska, and want to see them reconnect. If any of you have siblings or know people with them, you can definitely empathize here. And again, Koichi's death was far from perfect, but it was 1,000 times better than a certain Inazuma NPC who also dies. On a similar note, Inazuma lacked an emotional hook. Again, with Koichi and Chaska. Losing something we love is something everyone can empathize with. Similar to how Navi was an emotional hook for Maluz and Silver, Chaska is the hook for Koichi. But we can definitely empathize with Chaska for losing family. The focus here isn't on Chaska, but on giving us a connection to the tragedy. In Inazuma, our connection to the tragedy is Teppei, as well as some other random NPCs. The 3 NPCs with stolen visions are incredibly memorable. If you disagree, comment their names and struggles right now, no Googling. And as for Teppei, we know literally nothing about him, and even if we did, there's one main flaw in his death. It isn't due to war. Teppei dies from his own stupid actions. He chose to use something that would kill him even after he knew it would. And we angry at the Fatui, who hint aren't the Tenryou Commission. And yeah, I know the war was overstated by the Fatui and confronting them would help to end it, but guess what? At the time we face Scaramouche, there is literally zero evidence to that effect. Teppei's death, which should serve as a hook to feel the true brutality of war, ends up being completely unrelated to it. As for Koichi, last we know, her and Chaska are out fighting in the front lines in the Flower Feather land, Chaska doing the fighting and Koichi performing much needed medical work. And unlike Teppei, Koichi dies as a direct result of the fighting. some of the stuff with death metal is not that hard to pull off. Not to mention the emotional hook of these historians. I'm a massive animal lover, like the type of person to say, why have children when you have cats? And most people, no matter who they are, break inside when they see innocent animals involved in violent fighting. Even if you don't care about the people, seeing the Saurians die has to hurt. In Inazuma, until the Ren Shogun attacks us, the war is more of a background thing. We know there's a war between Saganami and the Shogunate, but it's not given much attention, which is weird. I think it's okay for the war to take more of a backseat earlier on. It should have some impact. War is such a large thing and it affects facets of everyone's life, if indirectly. Maybe Kumiya could have commented on how it's weird that there are less soldiers at the police station than usual. Or when we pop up with Toma and Ayaka, some of the food wouldn't be able to be shipped in. That's not a great fix, but it is something. But honestly, I can't forget this if the war is made more of a big deal later. And that kinda happens. We get sent to the resistance at the beginning of Act 2 and toward the camp, which I already mentioned was lackluster. Then we go to the battle, see Hokomigi called him to the shrine, become captain of the Swordfish, do all that, then Teppei dies, and the war section ends. And kinda circling back, I want to talk about Teppei's death, but mainly what it caused. Because of Teppei, the entire war story is thrust into the background once more for chasing in the Vatui and beating A with Yaimiko. So, what? War is not something you can throw in the background for kicks. While I believe it can be done well, this is not a case of that. For an example of it done well, I want to turn to my favorite book series of all time, Wings of Fire. Yeah, I know I'm too old for it, but I don't care. But because most of you probably haven't read it, the first arc centers 5 Dragonets who are fated to stop a war. But they really don't want to stop the war, since the only reason they're going to stop it is because their mentors forced them to. Due to this, the war takes a backseat in the main plot. However, while they travel the continent trying to find a purpose, they constantly find themselves in the thick of war, whether they're accidentally caught between the warring tribes, having to avoid those who want them dead, or the consequences it has on their loved ones. But war is a backdrop to their story, war is still a part of it. That's what Inazuma was trying to do. But when it goes into the background of the Inazuma plot, it might as well not exist. It's like the war is only going on when it's convenient for the plot. As for Natlan, it was the center point of Act 4. Natlan gives the war the attention it deserves. Whether it's the main focus like Act 4 or in the background like Act 1, war is constant. A quick final point, again with Inazuma, telling not showing. When we first slay to watch Tatsumi, we overhear 2 Shogunate soldiers discussing a battle. According to them, it's chaos, and they ended up having to flee their lives. So what do we see when we arrive at the actual battle? Nothing. They're just standing, waiting for us to arrive, I presume, and there's only 16-ish soldiers, probably less. I'm not convinced the small battle was the storage of mobile players, which I originally thought was a fair point. Until Natlan. A full-scale cross-country war with serious fighting? This is realistic, not this. I'm pretty sure it was a budget thing. Genshin was already making $1.8 billion a year at the time they released Inazuma. They had budget. Natlan was incredibly immersive and engaging. Honestly, it's by far my favorite personal quest in all of Genshin. Okay, so writing tips time. To make this more applicable to general writing, I'm posing these tips from the angle of writing a tragedy. 1. Establish emotional weight. Use vivid imagery and experiences to convey the realities of war. Instead of characters simply stating the war is terrible, illustrate the horrors through actions and scenes. Make the impact of loss palpable. Allow readers to see and feel the consequences of war through character interactions and emotional responses. 2. Create relatable characters. Develop the emotional hook, with deep, relatable connections to the conflict, EX, family, friendships, etc. Readers should empathize with their struggles and losses. Characters will likely evolve as they experience the war, showcasing their psychological and emotional changes. 3. Maintain consistency in tone. Keep a somber tone throughout the narrative. Avoid jarring shifts to lightheartedness that undermine the gravity of the subject matter. Any humor or lighter moments serve a purpose in enhancing the tragedy, not detracting from it. Honestly, avoiding humor as a whole is safer, but there are ways to do it tactfully. 4. Incorporate realistic consequences. Show how war affects the entire community, not just the frontline fighters. This can include social, economic, and emotional ramifications. Avoid glorifying war, instead present it as chaotic and devastating, reflecting its true nature. 5. Build tension and conflict. This is basic, yeah, but important. Explore external e.g. battles and politics and internal conflicts, moral and personal dilemmas, to create a rich narrative landscape. And equally, if not more important, make it clear what's at risk. The audience should understand the consequences of failure or loss from the beginning, which Natlan does beautifully. 6. Use symbols and motifs. Utilize symbols that represent the war's impact, such as broken families or fallen comrades, to reinforce emotional themes. Hint at future tragedies or outcomes to come to create an atmosphere of impending doom and build anticipation. 7. Balance action and reflection. While intense action scenes are important to realism, allow moments of reflection for characters to process their experiences and losses. Ensure that the climax is emotionally resonant and feels like a natural culmination of the build-up throughout the narrative. 8. Engage the audience's empathy. Include multiple viewpoints to provide a fuller understanding of the war's impact on different individuals and communities. If you want to go a step further, present morally complex situations that force audiences to confront their own beliefs about war, sacrifice, and loss, like how we did choose what scenarios we did and didn't follow. So yeah, that's about it. But what did you think? Are there any tips I missed? Parts that Natlan did poorly that you want to see addressed? Or good parts of Inazuma that I overlooked? All comments are welcome, just be civil about it as usual. If you made it to the end, make sure to like and subscribe. Alright, enough from me. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or night, wherever you are, and I hope to see you in the next one.